And we are live, guys. Good morning, everybody. We have James from Kibble Watches here. If I'm sure you guys have probably heard of
Hello.
him. He's been around the YouTube game for a while. How you doing this morning, James?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Very well. Can't complain at all. Thank you for having me on. I'm excited.
Appreciate your time, man. Appreciate you coming on. I
Oh,
remember
pleasure.
watching. We were talking off camera. I remember watching you. It's been a couple years ago, man. I started watching you on YouTube, which is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, as I said in a video a while ago, a few people have said to me they feel like they've watched me grow up through the YouTube and through the industry and everything like that. Because,
Yeah,
as you said, I think I started around 6 years ago. I think I was 17, nearly 18, and I'm 23 now. So it's been a long time.
that's crazy, crazy. What Good morning, Jason. Design Ateliers on
Hello.
on the channel. He's got his own
How you
channel.
doing?
If you want to check it out sometime, man, he's got pretty good stuff on his channel.
Yeah,
What
definitely.
watch are you wearing this morning or afternoon for you?
I'm wearing yeah, almost afternoon. I'm wearing the two Amiga, real gorgeous original dial, oversized mil,
Okay,
original radium in the loom and the hands as well. Just a
nice.
really good example. I mean, it's the kind of things we try and get as often as possible, but they're not the easiest to find. How about yourself?
Not bad. I'm wearing that Zen UTC that one of the viewers lent in. I got to upload the unboxing video on this. So I'll do a review on it pretty soon. It's a pretty cool
Very
watch.
cool.
Liking it. Wears pretty well even on the rubber. Rubber's pretty comfortable
Yeah, I
actually.
think the Zen are great. I think massively underrated for what they offer and the price you can get them at. I think they're on par, obviously, with Oris and a couple of other brands, but doing it in the German way and very sort of industrial in their design. I think they're
Definitely
great.
toolish for sure. Now we may have a lag, guys. By the way, I apologize because, of course, he's across the pond. So, for those of you who don't know, he's in the UK. He's got his
Yeah,
what's your
all the way
watch
over.
business you
Yeah, so I started Kibble Watch, which is my watch business, quite a few years ago now. So I had a YouTube channel, as we said, about 6 years ago, and it was purely my love for watches, especially in vintage, affordable pieces, which is where it all began. And developing that and building up a community around YouTube was a bit easier back then because there was a lot less of us. When I was
got?
starting out, there was only a couple of people really um, doing it, and I was probably one of the youngest at the time making videos. So yeah, it was really interesting to be one of the early people there, and eventually decided I wanted to be a watch dealer, as most people do.
Yeah.
And I managed to build up the business from £300, which is what I had then. Bought a few watches, a couple of Seikos and Citizens, and build it up to what it is today. You know, we're very fortunate to have an office here in London. We were in South Road for a pop up over December, so things have definitely progressed from me and few people will remember videos of back in the day with crazy hair. And yeah, it's come a little way. It's come a little way. I can't complain.
Nice, nice. So, what you said you started pretty much, and then you created the business out of YouTube. Was that the YouTube was the kind of catalyst for wanting to get in the industry, pretty much?
I think I've always wanted to be my own boss. I've always put a business. I just businesses as well, and they've always been terrible and never got off the ground. So whenever I was really interested in something, it was my opportunity to try and monetize it. Really, that's the truth. And doing that on easy, and merging the two worlds together. Unfortunately, it wasn't as easy as sort of getting to a point and deciding I wanted to build a business and then starting the business and going full time. I only went full time over a year ago. So there was probably 3 to 4 years of building it on the side of full time jobs. And I just happened to make
Mm-hmm.
sure those jobs were retail, buying, selling watches at brand new retail. And it started off with very affordable stuff like Citizen, Michael Kors, and all your fashion brands, and working my way up to eventually be in store Tudor and Rolex, and me worked into auctions and here, there, everywhere until finally one day I could add enough money in the bank and I could do it this full time. And that was a bit over a year ago now, year and a half nearly. Yeah.
Nice. Now, do you have any advice for somebody like say like somebody like myself that would want to get into the industry? as far as like not necessarily a watch salesman or watch dealer, excuse me, but wait, any suggestions or any ideas on if people were interested in getting into the industry?
Yes, getting into the industry not just as a watch dealer, just in general. Is that what you
Yeah.
mean? Um, I think first what you want to do. Um, Early days when I wanted to get into the industry before deciding I was going to be a watch dealer, I thought maybe I'd be a watchmaker. So when you decide you want to get into this industry, really have a look at all the areas that you could do: marketing, photography, reviewing, YouTube, and
Mm-hmm.
look how viable that is, and how if you decide I want to become a watch reviewer on YouTube and make that the living, try and do a few videos. And if it goes over well and you think you can do it, then great. But if you can't talk in front of a camera and you really struggle and you're not very, good with your words, then that's probably not going to be the one for you.
Mm-hmm.
And watchmaking wasn't going to be for me. I bought a kit, really hated it. I did not enjoy taking apart. It was really not for me. So that's when I decided, okay, that's not what I'm going to be. What's the next thing? Work your way through. So decide what you want to do, give it a go, and if you feel it, but it's going to take time. Just like
Okay.
anything, patience is the key to all of it. Unless you've got a very, very wide bank account already where you don't have to worry for the next 2-3 years financially and you can just do whatever you need to do to build it, then cool. But most people don't have that privilege. So it's a case of doing it on the side of something, putting in a lot of work, putting in a lot of time, and just being patient.
Cool. And what I like about your website is that you've curated kind of not just Rolex or not just AP, not just what's kind of popular, but you've kind of curated like what you would collect, pretty much, right? Like a little bit of everything.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, you cut out for a bit there, but I
Uh,
think I got the gist of what you're saying. So, yeah, I mean, again, that was just a decision. I decided very early on I didn't want to just be another watch dealer who just sells Rolex, who gets brand new out of retail, stuff stickered and then adds on 2 grand or whatever onto it and calls it a day.
Cutting out a little bit.
All the way to modern watch. So, for me, the interest was there. So why limit myself to one brand? And I think early days as well, I collecting one brand. Dealers just sell one brand, but what's the point in that? Because the person you brands so they want. Whereas I wanted to be the one-stop shop, basically. So you know what? Today I want a vintage Seiko. I know James can supply me that and find me one, and also knows what he's looking at.
Yeah.
Again, I know James can provide that. Right now we've got a Langen's Saxonia on the
Uh,
website, so a beautiful white gold horology piece. So again, it's that big range that I wanted to offer to people because that's what they collect, and also it was kind of like thinking long term. So if you're just selling Rolex, you're missing out on a big chunk of market, which isn't at Rolex level, but has the potential to get there, right? We all start somewhere. As I said, I started off with £300 start the business, and now we're much higher. A lot of people go through life the same way. They come out of college or university and they haven't got a lot of money. They get a job and eventually they get more money. So I was sort of in the position to be able to sell to these people fresh to the market their first watches, Seikos, and grow with them as they grew financially or their collection grew. And I was also there supplying those new watches as they grew. So I've had collectors who have been with me since early days, since 4 years ago, and they're still with me today. They still buy exclusively or primarily through me and sell. So it was almost like a 360 model with those guys. So that's why the decision was made to do that, really.
okay. And now, we were talking about that off camera. Now, COVID has also affected the business a lot lately too, hasn't it? When you say like an
Yeah,
upturn or a downturn.
it's been strange. I mean, in areas of the market gone down and there has been downturn because of COVID, but then the mass majority of it has been very good. I mean, it's such a terrible time and everything that's going on in the world because of COVID is awful. And my heart goes out to everyone affected. But from an industry perspective and watch selling perspective, it's been good. People have been at home a lot, especially here in the UK, and they've been getting bored. And there's been rent holidays or mortgage holidays here in the UK. So people have not had to pay their mortgage for a couple of months. They still have to pay for months to had all this extra money in the bank, especially. So, sales have been up. It's actually last year, despite everything, last year was a much more successful year than the year before, up almost 40% in terms of sales. Now, that's because we were growing as a business as well, so there's many factors into that. But a global pandemic was going at all was surprising.
Yeah.
So
Now you would say you probably notice more sales wise, like you obviously have an office. You notice probably more sales from online probably than else, like walk-ins or stuff like that, right?
yeah,
You say that's the way things
yeah,
are going, probably everything
yeah,
online,
definitely. Definitely. And I think, it was always going to be that way. We started off the business purely online. We didn't have a physical location. And if people
Mm-hmm.
wanted to meet in person to view a watch, we'd do it in a coffee shop, in a Starbucks. Yeah, that's convenient. So that's how it all began. And the office was more just to make it formal, but also the London address on the business. It looks good. It says, adds that sort of makes us more reputable to the unknown people who don't know about it. So it's always good. But yeah, in terms of sales, it's all online, but it's been for us, and that's where our focus is. That's why we put a lot of effort into on the website and on social media. It's about making it the very best experience for people online. And then if they happen to want to come to the office, which is appointment only, but obviously during now, no one can come to the office anyway. But in normal times, yeah, we put everything we can here. Find sales through and through, and I think that's going to be the future of it. Really, I'm to the office less and less, and working from home more and more.
Okay. Nice. So you see do you see yourself actually getting more inventory as far as like how many pieces you have right now?
Currently in stock is, I think we've probably got around 55 to 60 pieces in stock.
Okay.
We've probably got another 20 that are with various watchmakers getting ready to become stock. Then we've probably got another 20 or 30 in the pipeline just waiting to go up on the website because we release watches every Saturday. And we do a weekly drop and we make a big video and it's just, the whole Instagram day and everything like that. And it's like a Saturday we're going to have new watches, so that's the day you go check out the website. Because of that, we don't put out watches throughout the week, so we build them up and we release anywhere between 6 and 10, sometimes 12 watches drop. But when you've got a backlog of 20 or 30, you're quite set back. So we're always teasing stuff on Instagram and selling stuff before they even get to the website. But yeah, there's always more works, and vary from, if you see our stock, anything from a couple of £100 goes up to, right now we've got a 1935 carat gold Rolex cushion, one of the first ever made, being worked on, which is probably going to be £3,500 to £4,000. So it really can vary, and it's quite a lot of. This is a rich industry in the sense that you need money in the bank to buy stock, and you also need money in the bank to protect you against all the stock you're having that isn't sold yet. A lot of people look at watch dealers and they see the numbers and they think it's great, but we make obviously a very small margin on what sells, and then also there's that capital outlay in the first place for all that stock. So it's not always the easiest to manage cash flow in this kind of industry.
Yeah, that's one bad thing. There's a lot of Johnny come latelys in the industry that just want to flip Rolexes basically, and they see that and they think that's just all there is to it. Like you buy a Rolex and you just sell it.
And even then, a lot of people don't realize Rolexes are probably the worst earners for on Rolex, because everyone knows how much a Rolex is worth. So you buying it at a couple of £100, if that, undervalue, so you can make a couple of £100 when you sell it. People don't consider everything after that. So let's say you make £300 on a watch. People don't consider we have to pay VAT on that, we pay tax. Sales, we've got our outgoing costs. So there's collectors out there who buy and sell watches as a side hustle or a side thing where they make a few £1,000s here and there, and then make it full time, but they don't consider how much of that then gets lost to all your expenses once you become a fit. Business, when we became official business and like everything was proper, we did a lot more in sales, but we made a lot less money than before because we all of a sudden all this tax, all this. It was not fun. So a lot of people don't consider those things. It's not buying 5 Rolexes, flipping them, and then all of a sudden you're a full-time dealer.
Yeah, definitely. Now, would you give any recommendations on somebody that would want to start it? Would you recommend, like, if it's like a passion, kind of like, of course, we're both passionate about the hobby. That's why I started a YouTube channel. I cover a little bit of everything. I'll still be doing it whether I get big or whether I stay the same. You know what I mean? Same amount of subscribers. Would you say if you're passionate about it, maybe go about that way and do it?
Yeah. Again, it got out for a few of that, so I've got to build together what I think you said. So, if you're passionate about the industry, go for it. If you're passionate about anything, if you've got true passion for something and you want to make it your full-time thing, go for it. I think there's no better time now, especially with everyone being at home and having more time for the most part. Obviously, it's different everywhere in the world, but go for it. Realistic with it. Be patient. Understand you might have this idea of what you want it to become, but it might take 4, 5, 6, 7 years until it gets there. So understand you might have to work if you're working a full-time job and you really hate it. Maybe rewire yourself to understand that job's just a mean to an end, right? It's just paying your bills whilst you build your other thing, which is what I had to do for, 3 and a bit years. Well, longer than that if you count all the other jobs. But, it's that kind of thing. Go for it. Just be realistic, take a lot of time. I think that's my key thing that I say to everyone, is patience in everything, not just building any business. In building a YouTube channel, as you know yourself, it takes a while to get to that 1,000 subscribers, and then it takes to get, I feel like a lot of people come into a lot of things just expecting to get them pretty quick, and they burn out because of it. They get 2 months in and they're like, oh, I'm not away. You gotta keep going. You gotta be patient.
Okay, I gotcha. Anybody in the comments got any questions for James? What's everybody wearing, by the way, in the comments? What watches you guys wearing? And by the way, Clive, you might be interested in that A-Long. It's on. It's actually a decent price, I think, ain't it?
Yeah, I mean the retail of it in the UK is just under £14,000, and we've got it pre-owned, full box papers, good condition, only a year old really, for under £10,000. So yeah, whole $4,000 off retail. On the run.
Okay.
MT9F.
And
very nice.
Nice, Grand Seiko. Nice. Definitely killer watch. Definitely killer. What's your personal collection look like, James, as far as watch wise?
Yeah, it varies. I mean, my personal collection is constantly changing. Being in the industry, I'm very fortunate to. I mean, we've got, for example, I'll just pick up 4 free watches that are right next to me. I'm getting watches in all the time, every single day. So, I get to wear a lot of watches, and also sometimes I accidentally keep watches instead of selling them. So, my collection's all. But right now, I've got a really gorgeous Cartier tank, a Zenith, really nice 1970 Zenith, a really gorgeous 1970 Amiga Geneve, which is a dynamic sort of crazy combination of things. A varied collection from vintage to new to Midos, vintage Midos. Yeah, everything. I'm as eclectic as my website would make you believe. Some great watches people are wearing.
Yeah, definitely.
James, what do you
6 Colors got his
for watches in 2021. Yeah, great pieces. So, what do you think about the online commerce for watches? I think it's going to be growing far faster than it did in 2020. And 2020 was already a fast year. Now, there was a couple of ups and downs because of everything going on, especially over there in the US. You seem to have a bit more dips in certain areas than we did here in the UK and Europe, the watch industry. But overall, it's been very resilient during all this. So I think it's only going to go up. I think it's going to do very well. And I feel like more businesses are going to be focused a lot more on it. So here in the UK, we've got a lot of jewelers, and same with Europe, for over 100 years. And they're very old school in the way they do things. They may have 40 branches here in the UK, and all of which are in-store only, not very good online sales retailers. I mean, Patek's only recently started to do more online stuff. But I feel like everywhere and every retailer and every watch brand is going to be far more focused online, especially as more and more people have got used to buying online and had no choice. So some of my sort of long-time customers have always come to meet me and buy watches like from me in person. They've obviously had to buy online instead now. So I think commerce or e-commerce anyway, for sure, is going to be the future of it all. And I think that goes for every industry.
And you think social media plays like a big part, like a lot, like YouTube in general,
The
YouTube,
biggest,
Instagram,
yeah,
Facebook, all that?
yeah. I think it plays the biggest part. I think everything is about attention. Where are people's attention right now? And right now that's on Instagram, Facebook to a certain degree, slightly different with selling, but for sure Facebook, YouTube. Audio is becoming huge. I feel like wherever people's attention are, there's going to be ways of turning that into sales. And whether that be turning into direct sales, where like you specifically say this is for sale and they go buy it, or indirect sales that you can't track. For example, me being on here and maybe someone sees that I'm on here, searches my website, and happens to find a watch they like for sale and buys it. That's an indirect sale. So I think wherever people's attention are is where the opportunities are, for sure. And right now, that's
podcasts are definitely getting really big.
Yeah, exactly.
And Six Killer's got a question for you. He says, how long do you think the micro brands will be around? It seems like there's a new one popping up almost every day.
I think there's a fine line between micro brands and just a small brand, right? I think true quality micro brands are going to stay. People are more thoughtful of what they buy. It goes down to from buy the supermarket and the eggs to we care about the stories behind what we buy. And micro brands have a really unique way of telling that story, which big brands often don't. So I think if it's done right and it's done authentic and people really care about it, into it, I think they're going to do very well. I think where it gets difficult is if all of them look the same as everyone else's and they're all using the same fragrance, they're all using the same design, it's all the same case maker, it just gets very redundant very quick. Whereas brands that are things a bit different, well, there's loads of them, but it's quite interesting to see what they're doing. I think they're gonna outlive some of the bigger brands.
Like Elston over, if you know Zelos, I feel like Zelos is going to be one of the ones that sticks around. He's got like a hardcore like cult following now.
Yeah, exactly, and like even going a little bit larger with brands that I wouldn't call micro brands, like boutique brands almost. You got Fizz watches, you've got Ming. They're another one that are doing very big things. That is where they're going to keep going, and the micro brands are constantly seem to get to that level. The prices of Zelos, as you said, seem to have only increased in the past few years because they're doing better and better. So I think it's to get to the £1,000 rough mark, then £300, and selling vast units, which they have to do.
And the cool thing about the micros I find too is you actually get to speak with the owners. Like I've dealt like directly with a lot of the owners, like either through buying a couple different ones or them sending them in for review. It's not like where you can go talk to somebody over at Seiko or Grand Seiko or
Timex. Exactly.
You can't really talk to anybody over there. But like the micro brand, like Zelos, you can actually talk to Elston himself. So they're a lot more accessible.
At the end of the day, this is it. At the base, we all want to feel welcome and special in some way, right? So when you get a watch brand communicate with you and give you the time of day, it feels nice, and it all urges you to stick with them. And this is what micro brands have done really well. Their communication with the community, involving the hearing their feedback, changing things, whereas big watch brands don't often do that. Now there are exceptions where they do. The latest Speedmaster Snoopy into the community and things like that. Same with the latest upgrades. So it can happen, but very rarely. So I think that's where micro brands.
I do feel like Oris is doing it really well. Like Oris is starting to communicate more with people, and they're actually starting to send out more of their samples to like Random Rob. They sent him and Bruce Williams a bunch of samples. So I think some of the brands are starting to get there. It's just taking them a little bit of time.
And it's also adapting. I mean, the watch industry is an old industry. It's one of the oldest out there that's still going in the same way it's going. A lot of the time, the watch industry is behind trends. They're slow to come up to what's new. So social media and even just the internet, watch brands were incredibly slow to adopt all that because it's an old industry where watchmakers have been doing it for years and they're all based in like Switzerland or Germany in little villages and towns. So it's a very difficult thing to keep. And as I said earlier, people are more aware of everything they do. They care more about story, care more about where things come from, how they're made. So taking the watch industry to adapt to that, but I think they're doing well. For as much rubbish as we give the watch industry for so, I think we also need to give a lot of credit for what they're doing.
Yeah.
So
definitely. Anybody else got any more questions for James? We'll probably call it here in about half an hour because I know you probably stay busy. I know you're in the office right now, right?
Yeah, in the office, just all day taking in watches, getting things ready, watches, trying to sell more. That's how it usually goes.
I hear you. What's your website for those listening, by the way, if you want to plug it?
Yeah, definitely. Watches.co.uk. So we're based here in the UK, office here in London. We do ship worldwide, but obviously with Brexit and everything else, there's import tax now and VAT and everything like that to be considered. But send me a message, if you ever want anything, that's definitely discussed. So earlier you said you wanted to potentially get into the as a more formal thing. What kind of area was you hoping to do that? Like, what was your?
I hadn't really thought about it too much as far as that. Like, I just wondered, like, what I should do, Actually, Tom Austin asking, do you have yeah, he has a YouTube channel about watches. What's your channel, James?
There you go. Kibble watches as well. I've just put it in there. Yeah, we the videos of watches that we have for sale, but we're starting to do a bit more than just that. So, yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I thought about maybe possibly eventually getting into selling or possibly at some point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not necessarily starting a brand or something like that, but just maybe kind of like you start out just like part-time,
Yeah, I mean, it's the kind of thing you start doing something, you have an idea of what it's going to be like, and nothing ever really sticks to that, right? You set a goal and you take a load of detours. That's what happens in life, right? So when I first started and wanted to make this, my goal was I'm never going to sell watches for £1,000. Everything under 1,000 because where my budget was, and I thought that was cool. And then I realized how many units I'd have to make that sustainable for full time. It was just. I mean, it was crazy. So you have to sort of work with things as they go. But in regards to you doing it as selling on the side for things, would it be like our Run and Rob does a few sell videos here and there where he sells a lot of the stuff he gets in and that kind of thing?
Maybe something like that. I don't know if I'd do it through YouTube or either online. I'm not sure yet.
Yeah. No, definitely.
Haven't really thought too much about it.
You should definitely go for it. Few of us out there.
Yeah. That's just like with collecting too. We get into collecting. Like I remember when I first got into collecting, I thought like $300-400 was a lot for a watch, and now I'm wearing like a Zen. Like I would have thought $2,000. Or I bought that Zenith a while back. Of course, I sold it since then. But $7,000-8,000 piece. You don't think about it. It's like no, what I mean.
Crazy when it gets to a point where you justify watches that are 10, 20, 30,000 pounds. Like whether you have the money or not, you're justifying it. You're going, but because it's an in-house movement, it's white gold. Once you get to that point of justifying watches of that kind of value, it's when you're fully ingrained into the industry. There's no going back. You're in deep.
Definitely. But anyways, guys, we're closing in about half an hour, so I appreciate you guys for chiming in on the chat. Thanks, James, for coming on the channel. Definitely have to come on again sometime whenever you have time.
I was going to say, yeah, hopefully we get to. It'll be great. And thank you very much for everyone who's watching around.
Yeah, definitely. Appreciate it, everybody. And we should be